You're listening to This Week in Property. Stay current, relevant and up to date in the world of property investment. Learn from the UK's leading property professionals and grow your property business.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Property. I'm your host Richard Swan, and in today's show I have sat down with Jimmy Acton from Property Booking. Now, in the UK property market, from a customer standpoint, there are simply two paths ahead of us, two choices to make. We can either rent or we can buy. And both of those, of course, have pros and cons, ups and downs. And when we look at the cons, when we look at the disadvantages, the issues, the challenges, the pain points for that customer, it's quite obvious what each of them are. On the rental side of things, we're never getting to own the property. We're not getting to buy that asset. It's not becoming our home in a longer term sense. We're simply passing through and we are at the whim of the landlord as to how long that passing through, that journey is going to be. On the purchasing side, on buying residential property, the disadvantages are very obviously financial. There's that requirement to save up, to somehow get our hands on a large deposit to go against getting the lending, getting the borrowing, the mortgage that's going to allow us to achieve the purpose of actually owning the property eventually. So two very obvious paths with two very obvious lists of pain points. But that's where property booking comes in, because there is a third solution, a middle ground that they are trying to not only run with, but to really grow and expand in the UK property market. And that methodology is shared ownership. Now, property booking is the UK's leading shared ownership portal. And it's a fascinating solution that's put out there, and it is a government-backed scheme. I don't want to give too many details away before the chat, but it's a fully compliant government-backed scheme with a heavy involvement from local housing associations, from property developers, and property booking is the hub between it all. They're trying to make sense of it all, to provide that solution, to meet the needs of the customers and the suppliers in this particular part of the property market. And it's a solution, a service, a portal, which for the most part is not well known. And that's what they're trying to really achieve, to get the news out there about how this can be used by so many people to help them, to help push them on in their property journey as they go through life. And we had an absolutely fascinating conversation. Jimmy has got a brilliant way of not only putting across what property booking does, but explaining the whole strategy, explaining the whole methodology that's very simple to understand from the customer's viewpoint, so they can see exactly what kind of options are available to them and the advantages of that, but also how it can actually solve a lot of problems, a lot of issues with the property market itself, with the market in general, with the needs and the demands and the challenges that housing associations and property developers have as well. So really enjoyed it. Very grateful for Jimmy taking the time out of his busy day to share the story with us. And as he says himself, I think you're really getting a sneak peek. You're getting ahead of the curve of the vast majority of the people out there. By tuning into This Week in Property, you're getting to understand something that it's before a massive wave of marketing and publicity that the likes of the government and housing association and developers and suppliers are really going to put out there. So tune into this and understand exactly where this fits into the picture of the property market so that you have the information to hand. And of course, as ever, if you're looking to reach out, to connect with property booking, to connect with Jimmy himself, just follow the links into the show notes behind the show, and you'll have all the contact information there. But let's get into it. Let's get into this conversation. Fascinating insights from the man himself. So without any further ado, Jimmy Acton. So, Jimmy, hello, sir, and welcome to the show. It's good to have you here. Are you well?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. What about yourself?
I am very well indeed, and I'm excited about our chat. I want to get the listeners to know more about what exactly is this property booking that Richard's just spoken about in the intro, and we'll get into all the weeds about it. I'm sure you'll keep us right on the nitty gritty and the ins and outs, and listeners that are listening in, if it's something that can serve them, that they can hook into, obviously they can do your usual listeners, hook back into the show notes, and all the links are there for the stuff that myself and Jimmy are going to be talking about today. But your good self, Jimmy, tell me this. What's your kind of background? What's your personal story? Where's your career taking you that it's found you at this point today of being with property booking? What's your own story?
So thanks very much for the introduction. I think my story is quite interesting. So when I was at high school in the early 90s, I was introduced to the internet. One of my teachers took me aside to a room and said, listen, I want to show you something really quite special. And she sent an email to America and we got a response within about 2 minutes. And from that point on, I was hooked. I didn't really know what it was that just happened, but I was definitely hooked on what had just happened and how it sort of went about. So that was really the spark for me in the internet and obsessing about how I can not make money, but how I can transform something and sort of learn from it and how it all knits together. Right. So that took me down the IT route. I did GCSEs, A-levels, went on to do university and studied computing and programming. And for my dissertation, I built a successful website, which became its largest within Europe for a sports section for lacrosse, which was quite interesting. I learned a lot about the way that people interact and the way that technology changes and evolves. On the back of that, I went and got jobs in various different roles and formats and capacities, which was really around sales, the internet connectivity. So I used the skill set that I've been taught around technology and put that into a sales role. 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to create an agency of my own. Mm-hmm. And 2 years ago, I merged and joined forces with my business partner, Owen Thomas, and he already had an agency. So we created a much bigger footprint with an agency that he'd led and a legacy for many years called Full Communications. I joined that business and the customer base was specifically and heavily focused around affordable housing. And we have a lot of clients who come to us and request websites for developments they've built, for properties that they want to get rid of, and they're promoting to the affordable market. Now, that led me on to trying to understand what that affordable market was, and who is the criteria, what does the criteria fit around that affordable market and who those people are. And they're just normal people. Unfortunately, the world is, and certainly the UK has got to a point where unless you have help from the bank of mum and dad, affordable housing is the only route to go down. Now, that doesn't mean council houses and what people associate with affordable housing. That means tenures like shared ownership, like help to buy, and it may be something like a London living rent or support with rent. So they're the different types of tenures. So I got my head around that and quite quickly realised that there wasn't anything in the market today that supported affordable housing. There are the big brands out there that everyone's heard of, so the Rightmoves, the Zooplas, but they don't really focus on affordable. So when a new buyer is looking, or someone who maybe is looking to move from rental into buying, they look on Zoopla and there's no real clear route or path to find it. And then when you do find something, how do you know you're eligible? There's an awful lot of criteria that fits. So that's what led us onto property booking. Now, it was an idea the agency had already had and one that I wanted to bring back to life. We sat around and did a lot of brainstorming, a lot of whiteboarding to figure out what would be the perfect scenario. We spoke to clients who were already part of our business in the agency, and we came up with a plan. We put that into action, and that's how property booking was formed. That's where really this came from. So that's kind of a bit about me and how we got to where we are today. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense.
It does indeed. And your story of the first email that we sent, I remember that vividly. You almost doubt it. You're okay, I got a response, but was that really America?
No, it was. Yeah, it was fascinating. Yeah,
total new frontier. And when you speak about Owen and you speak about the agency and so on, did the agency already have a connection with, an interest in property, or has that just came out of left field for all of you?
No, it's always been something that the agency has been close to.
Right.
If you go back 10, 15 years, maybe even longer, Owen's dad, a gentleman called Gwyn Thomas, very, very nice man, still involved as a non-exec within the businesses. But Gwyn built the agency up, and it was predominantly buying media space, buying ad space, creating ads in the press, because the internet didn't exist. So when you were selling a property, how would you sell a property? Well, people still put ads in press. You still look in the Metro paper or in the Evening Standard in London or wherever it may be, and there's still double page spreads of people selling property, whether that's affordable or private. It doesn't really matter. People still do it, and that's how the agency transferred into a digital and creative agency, and very heavily on web and technology surrounding that.
Fantastic. A nice wee sweet spot there, isn't it? All these different skills and influences coming together. It's magical when that happens, and you find a key to something, a solution you can help a lot of people with. Absolutely fantastic. So, property booking then. So, the title of the show, and it's in, and Richard's introducing, Jimmy from Property Booking. What on earth are they talking about today? Propertybooking.co.uk. So, launched back in mid-2017, and we've got these headline banners, the leading shared ownership portal, the preferred online listing system. Okay, part buy, part rent. What on earth are they talking about? If we take it right back to the simplistic, if I'm a Joe Blogs listening into this on my podcast player, I'm thinking about looking for my first property. Where is it you can help? What does this guy, Jimmy, mean by part buy, part rent? How does this work for me on a practical level?
No, absolutely, and it's a huge question that a lot of people have. I think immediately there's some myths out there. Does part buy, part rent, or does shared ownership mean I'm sharing with somebody else?
Exactly, that's right. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. What this means in layman's terms, and let's talk about the tenure first. So shared ownership is a scheme that is available, and it's supported by and backed by the government. But what shared ownership provides is the ability for developers or housing associations to own the property. They will own a percentage of it, and you buy the other percentage. So typically, you would predominantly, maybe as an introduction, you'd buy 25% share of a property. So your mortgage and your deposit is much lower. Now, what happens to the other 75%? That's where you pay rent on that. So when you go to get your mortgages, especially in places that are unaffordable, so like London or sort of areas that are heavily populated, so that Manchester, for example, is becoming quite unaffordable because there's apartments and they're so expensive. It might be that your deposit might be £3,000 or £4,000 rather than being £20,000 or £30,000. And okay, you don't own the full property, but it means you have that opportunity to get on the ladder. You then have, during your ownership of that property, the ability to work with the housing association or the developer, whoever you're dealing with. It's a staircase. Now, staircasing is quite a simple process. What that means is you have the ability at multiple times during your the ownership of that property to buy more of the share of that property. Now, you don't buy it at the rate you purchased it at. So if the property goes up in value, you buy your next share at the new value. So there has to be something in it for the housing association or developer as well. So that's really how the tenure works. The myths that surround this are something that a lot of people are trying to tackle. I know the National Housing Federation, who we work closely with, have spent the last 12 months on a roadshow up and down the country, working with housing associations, and they're trying to create and launch a campaign in the next sort of 12 months, which will go live around that myth busting. So that's something that's really exciting, and I think everyone's excited, waiting for. So yeah, it's definitely a tenure that is it needs more press. It definitely needs more attention, and it's a great route to market for people. And I think because of the way property prices are going up, it will become the best route to market for people that don't rely on the bank of mum and dad, or don't have that deposit saved aside or set aside because wages haven't necessarily risen at the same rate as inflation. So that's kind of what shared ownership is. Property booking is the UK's leading portal. I'm sure if Carlsberg were to write who was the best, I hopefully it would be us. There are other portals, but property booking is ours, and ours is the one that we push and drive for people to find properties on. How do we differ and what do we do? So like Rightmove, like Zoopla, you can search for a property in your area, and it's free to list for housing associations and developers. So it's not like Rightmove where there's costs and there's impact. So people should be listing their stock and should be listing their properties. So if you're looking for a property, you come onto the portal, you search for the area you're looking in, and the results come up. Now, what happens on that results page is it will show you information on the property. It will show you all of the usual floor plans, but it will also show you the eligibility criteria. And there is a form that you can complete and register your details, and it will tell you whether you're actually eligible. So within London, it's quite strict. So what you'll find is you may have to live or work in the right borough. You may have to earn a certain amount. And there are caps in place. So outside of London, you can't earn more than £80,000. And within London, you can't earn more than £90,000. So there are some thresholds that have to be factored in.
And are those thresholds and those kind of caps and limitations and criteria, are those set by the government themselves because it's a government-backed scheme, or is it individually down to the actual housing association? Who's on top of all those criteria?
So it's actually set by the government. So it's something that is set in stone. You can't change or move those. So we work heavily with the Greater London Authority. So we're responsible for the contract for London. So Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, we pitched that a couple of years ago, and we run the identical portal on london.gov.uk, and it's /homes. So you just see a different looking version of our website, but it does exactly the same thing. So that criteria is set, and there's no way of that changing or being flexible. It is set in stone, and that's designed so people who fall into a certain category can get on the property ladder. Now, if you're earning over £90,000, you would anticipate that you can actually save up enough deposit, and you can go and get onto the market itself. So the opportunity for shared ownership, it has to have a criteria and restrictions around it. So that's why that it is where it is today.
Of course.
So once you've gone through the eligibility criteria checking on the website will tell you whether you're successful for that property, and then you can then follow through. The housing association will get in contact with you. They'll then maybe arrange an open day, or you can book onto an open day through our website if there's one available or they've got one set up. And then it's over to the housing association and for you to fall in love with the property. If it ticks some boxes, then and it's what you're looking for, then hopefully you've fallen in love with it before, and you've seen pictures of it, and you think, oh my God, that's exactly where I want to live, and that's exactly the right location and the right property for me, or for maybe a small family that you're planning on setting up home. So that's when you have to then go through the process of getting a mortgage, and mortgages are exactly the same. It's just a shared ownership mortgage. You're getting a mortgage for less, but they'll factor in. What they'll factor in is the rental part of it. So they'll see the rental costs of that property, and they'll make sure that it's affordable for you. And there's no different process. It's not anything that anyone should be concerned about. It's very, very simple and easy to follow. And there's some great providers out there that are doing this, and all the large banks support it. So that was an obvious question I was going to throw in there. Wait a minute, does everybody do this? Do I need to go to someone specifically? But they've all came behind it as well, because the government themselves are kind of pushing it, obviously. Yeah, absolutely. So you'll see the big brands out there, the Barclays and that sort of kind of provider. The big banks, Virgin Money, they're all over this as well. And if you go back to the housing crash, when you could get 100% loan to value, that doesn't exist. There are some providers that have started doing sort of the 95%, 5% deposit, but predominantly you'd be looking at a 10% deposit. But if you're buying a smaller share, 25% of a property, it's not as much as you might think you need. So for people out there thinking, I want to get on the housing market, I've only got 3 or 4 grand in the bank, or 5 grand. Actually, you probably can get on right now. Stop renting, get into a property and start owning. And that's something that, is a commitment, and something that we really want to support for the country. Is let's get people on the ladder. There's a lot of overseas investment, apartments get snapped up, and that's not what we want. As much as we need that as a country, and it's important. It's really important that we, people get on the housing market, and they're not stuck in this rental loop. And It's something that my parents were pushing. You want to get on the ladder, and I saved and I did it. But certainly, if I was to go back and put myself in the shoes of buying a property today, I'd struggle. Which is why I'd be looking absolutely at shared ownership and some of the different tenures out there.
Gotcha. Going back to the whole start there and explaining the principle, I thought you really covered it well and you explained it really well, but you touched upon it, the fact that getting it more press, getting it more coverage. Has that been the biggest challenge, trying to educate, trying to explain the new model? People coming into the system and thinking, well, the way it works is you rent or you buy. That's what I need to do. Oh, I don't have enough of a deposit, I need to rent. Oh, okay, I hate renting, I wish I could buy. Trying to deliver and educate your system, your solution to these problems. Is that one of the biggest challenges that you face going along?
I think I'd have to agree with you. And I think the reason why is surely because it's something that I don't think has enough press. It doesn't have enough coverage. And that's something that the National Housing Federation are tackling, and they have a plan in place, and I know they're in the sort of closing stages of finalising that at the moment. And when that launches, there will be a large campaign. In what capacity, I don't yet know, but I would anticipate that there will be billboards, there'll be national press, there may even be television and radio. I think it needs that, and I think people need to realise that there are other options out there. And that is something that we are trying to tackle as well. What people are searching in Google. That's our problem. We've got to try and figure out what people are searching and try and be found for those search terms. Is it affordable property? Is it affordable property in Manchester? Affordable property in London? What are people searching? And if we can tackle that and we can find that, then we can definitely help. But for anyone out there looking, they only have to go to the website and have a look, and they'll be able to find thousands of properties that we've got listed that are available already.
Exactly.
And housing associations are supported by the local councils, so councils may be, they may also have some stock available that's on the shared ownership. It's not just, don't think, oh God, I'm going to end up in a council house. That's not, that might be right for some people, but if you want to get on the ladder, shared ownership is a tenure that is widely available across the country now, and there are properties all over the place that are either in build or built and ready for people to move into. So that there is some fantastic developments ready ready for people to view.
And then just move in and start the whole journey with. And I was on the site myself already, and it's very easy to navigate, very easy to look through, do your searches for them and bring them down. So tell me this, we touched upon the word national. I'm bearing in mind that we've got listeners for This Week in Property all over the country and elsewhere as well. When we say national, are we talking national in England at the moment? Are we talking national UK? How do we talk to them there?
So let's talk national England. It's really important. So really important to look at it from that point of view. We don't have any properties listed in Scotland right now. There is a product and there is support, but from a point of view, let's just talk about England. That's where this should be focused at the moment.
Wales as well? Is it an England?
Wales, yes. So Wales also provide shared ownership, but they don't have a massive amount of stock.
Gotcha.
And I couldn't tell you why at the moment. I know that's something they're addressing, so I have been and met with them and sat down and talked to them in great detail around a plan and how they can encourage developers to build more of this tenure. And that's what's important. It's getting people to build and to make this widely available. So when we looked, there was not a significant amount of properties, but there are more coming through. So it is available. It is there for people to jump onto. But at the moment, we have properties all across England, and that's where the focus is right now.
Gotcha.
But absolutely, if we can help people north of the border, and we can help people in other areas, then that's something we will definitely be open to. But right now, if you were to search on our site, you'll find that predominantly, if you look, there's a significant amount in the bigger cities, and then as you push out, you'll start to see that different tenures are becoming available. We met with a housing association last week who are starting to do more in Cheshire. So they're starting to do all these new build housing estates, and they're reserving part of what they'll build, maybe 25% of what they'll be building will go towards affordable. That'll go towards the shared ownership model.
Gotcha.
So that's a commitment from a lot of developers and housing associations.
Yeah, I mean, developers, just picking on that word, how have you found dealing with them? Because the housing associations, that council idea, that's a no-brainer. It makes perfect sense. Massive amounts of stock. They're trying to juggle with their boroughs, their counties, etc. So it makes perfect sense for a partnership there. The developers themselves, privately, building up their own estates and stuff, are they heavily involved? Do they see the win-win for them? Are you getting good uptake with them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So
Yeah.
so we've got loads of developers listing. We found great success in London. It's a lot of low hanging fruit for us. We see that because we have the Mayor London portal as well. It's great to build those relationships. But we're seeing the relationships growing across the country, and developers they work in a totally different way. But they've all got stock to ship. They've all got properties. And what you might find is a developer will build a block of flats, and then they'll hand it over to a housing association to do the selling.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the way that the model works, and certainly from the developer point of view, they may probably have more help to buy stock, so that's a totally different tenure in itself. Yeah. But what they would provide is certainly an element of housing and affordable housing. But they're great to work with. We have a great relationship with a lot of developers across the country. In both the digital agency capacity and as a property booking capacity. People listing stock and whatever works for the developer or for the potential seller of the property. Ultimately, we don't charge to list on our website, so that's something that's really important. I know other portals do, and that's a commitment again from property booking and the team, is that we will never charge to list. So that's something that's really important. It's on our own back that we drive and generate that traffic, which is something we're heavily focused and committed to.
Yeah, great stuff. Sets you apart as well, shows you your unique selling points. Perfect. So we've got those suppliers, we've got the housing associations, the developers coming in. That's brilliant. Thinking the other end of the scale, the customer, your market. What is that? Is that a certain age? Is that a certain demographic? Is there listeners that are switching off, say, that's for your young students and such and such? That's all that's for. Who would you say is your avatar? Because you're obviously very clever and switched on from internet point of view, tracking searches, trying to work out how to target people. Who is your kind of ideal customer, if you like?
So it's wide open. I mean, there's no age restrictions. Obviously, if you have to be over the age of 18 to get a mortgage. But the key thing I would suggest is that a first-time buyer, this is great for. But this could be for someone, elderly shared ownership exists. It's for people maybe who are have been renting all their life and want to just buy their property with some of the savings. It could be a couple that have got divorced and buying two properties may not work anymore, because there isn't enough equity in their current property that they have. So it may be that one of them goes and sets up a new property and they go through the shared ownership route. So there isn't really a demographic that I would say is specific. This is open to anyone, but key would be first-time buyers. That's when we see more take-up, people wanting to get on the housing market. So like you mentioned, the student side of things, people coming out of university, they might have got the first job, they might be earning a good wage, managing to save a little bit of money to one side, or maybe even have a bit of help from bank of mum and dad. But they're the people that we see are jumping onto this more and more. Within certain areas, we see within London, people that sort of get towards the age of 30, they've been renting a lot. They kind of moved to London for a job after university and got stuck in that rental rut, and now have managed to save a little bit of money or met somebody and starting a family. They want to buy the place of their own, and they're looking and thinking, over £500,000 for a one-bedroom flat in places of London, I can't afford this. Jeez. And then they're looking and seeing that there's these commutable areas that are maybe a zone out of town or maybe a little bit further afield than just outside of London. And they're realising that they can get a really nice property for a very low deposit and that's affordable.
Yeah.
I think the ideal client in for a case study world is a young family moving in, but this is open to anyone. This is a tenure that fits and will work. There's just criteria that need to be met, and any housing association, if you find a property in an area, can support you in finding what that eligibility criteria is. If there is information on our website that we provide, absolutely we will support you and we will check your eligibility. But housing associations, you can give them a call, you can have a conversation with them, because ultimately what we're trying to do as a business is we're trying to help those people find the right property. and put you in contact with that housing association to go through and make your sale. Now, if that means you picking up the phone to the housing association because you found a property through our website, we've done our job. You know, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find the right people for the properties and just match them up.
Great stuff. Great stuff. I love it. So another wee thing that popped into my head is the selling part of the puzzle. Okay, I've listened to Jimmy and I can see his staircase idea. I can start low. I can save the money. I don't need much of it. This is brilliant. This is solving that puzzle. And I can build my way up, working with that developer association to get to that thing that I'm looking for. But what if something changes? What if partway through that, something, I need to move elsewhere in the country? Is it still a simple process? Selling that off? That's because I'm tied in, I've got this part ownership? Is there anything we need to dismiss there as a potential problem?
No, and a great question. So thanks for clearing that one up and asking it. But no, there's no issues. You can go back to your housing association, tell them you want to move, and this just becomes a resale property. It's still a shared ownership property, so it'll go out into the resale market, and it will be available for people to again check their eligibility against. And the housing association will want to put someone in that shared ownership. Now, if for whatever reason that it sits in shared ownership in the for sale market for a while, maybe it's it's not in great shape, maybe it needs a lick of paint, then it can go out into the private sale market. It can go out and be purchased at full value, but predominantly and for the first 3 months it will be available back for shared ownership. So resales is a huge market for shared ownership. There are hundreds of them coming back onto the market on a monthly basis, and we list all the housing associations that list with us, put those onto our website. So any stock that is available with people we work with, you'll see on our site. And as more and more housing associations list on our portal, you'll start to see more and more stock across the country. But that's not to say you can't contact your local housing association and see what they have available.
That's great stuff. So you can see where you can pick it through the association. That's excellent. So that obviously then leads me on to thinking as a listener, oh wait a minute, what about costs? What's this going to cost me? Do I need to do something with property booking? Do I need to buy a subscription for this? Do I need to pay an upfront fee with this? How does that work? What do I need to know there?
Well, you'll be pleased to know it's free.
There we go. My favourite word of the British public.
Absolutely free, gratis, totally free service. So our website is free to use, and all the user or potential buyer has to do is jump on, search. It doesn't cost anything. You don't have to register your details. You don't have to do any of that just to search for properties. And if you see the housing association logo, you can pick up the phone, you can give them a call. It will cost you nothing. If you want to check your eligibility, then all it's going to cost you is entering your email address, your name, your phone number. And the reason you do that is so that if you are eligible and you enter that criteria, the housing association can contact you and you can contact them. The last thing you want to do is show you something that you fall in love with and then you have no idea where to go. So this is key for us. We want people to make contact and to get their eligibility criteria ironed out, and we want people to be able to move on to the next stage, which will be booking a viewing, going and seeing a housing association, going and seeing the development, and if it's off plan, just finding out a little bit more information about when you can reserve and when you can purchase or put a deposit down on that property.
Yeah, fantastic. Great stuff. Listen, I want to be respectful of your time, so just a few wee last questions, a kind of higher level, if you like. So the future for property booking, the plans for expansion, the milestones, the targets, the things you're chasing, what would you say there? What kind of things can you see in the future that you'd love to happen?
Well, I can tell you about some exciting things that are happening. So the first part of the future is we've decided to give our website a new look of paint. Built in a different format, works in exactly the same way, so nothing changes. No one's accounts will be lost. It will all be seamless. But we decided to go down a little bit of a different angle and a different look and feel based on user feedback. So that will be launching, I anticipate, the end of February, beginning of March. So there'll be an email that goes out to all registered users. There'll be an email that goes out to housing associations, and there'll be some press releases on the back of that. But that'll be a new website, a new look and feel, and a new, I guess, a new sort of strategy for us, which is more around the tenure, more around making shared ownership understood for what it actually is. We want people to understand what it's all about. We're also going to be allowing people to list Help to Buy. So we're going to become more of an affordable property platform. So not just shared ownership, because what we realise is people might think they want shared ownership once they realise what it is, but they might be able to afford Help to Buy. So which means that you own all the property, so it's a much better route to go down, but there's affordability criteria around there. What else do we see us doing? What else does the future hold? I would really like to be part of the National Housing Federation campaign. We'd really like to work closely with them on that campaign, and if there's anything we can do to support that and emphasise what they're going to be doing over the next 12 months, then we'll echo everything they do and everything they have to talk about. It's myth busting. It's trying to make people understand the shared ownership tenure, and it's important that everyone that's listing properties in this market on this tenure it supports that campaign. So we'll do everything we can to echo what they've got to say when that gets released. And really, we're going to keep doing the same thing, keep pushing out the myth busting, keep pushing out the messages, and keep trying to help people find us. You'll see a lot more of us in the press. You'll see a lot more articles floating around, and hopefully we'll be on a lot more podcasts and hopefully invited back again to speak. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that's it really from the future. But really, we want to just keep growing, and there's those names that you hear all the time, the Rightmove and the Zoopla. I'd love to be that third portal. I think that's a goal for us as a business. I'd like people to say Rightmove, Zoopla, and property booking. Yeah, that'd be great.
That's very good. I like that. I mean, you, hopefully you'll still talk to us, once you get to that level.
Of course, of course.
No, that's fantastic. Absolutely fascinating. So, listeners, I'm sure you've enjoyed that. Make sure you click on those links, get back into the show note pages, and you can hook in with property booking, and you can see exactly all the stuff that Jimmy and myself have just been talking about. But for your time today, Jimmy, thanks a million. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for inviting me, and it's been a pleasure.
Hi folks, it's Richard here again. I really hope that you enjoyed today's show. Now listen, I've got 2 links to help support you on your property journey, and I want you to write these down when it's safe to do so. You might be driving in your car just now listening to the podcast, and that's fine, but please make sure that you get back to this and write down these links. Okay, are you ready? Got your pen in hand? So the first one, thisweekinproperty.com. Now that's the website for this podcast. On there, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out. What you can also do on there is catch up on tons and tons of past episodes. There are hours and hours of property related content and some amazing guests with some fantastic insights to help you on your property journey. So that is thisweekinproperty.com. Okay, next link, propertyprotege.com. Now, let me spell that one out for you. PROPERTY PROTEGE. That's propertyprotege.com. Now, what's it all about? Well, the Property Protege Intensive is designed to give you the lift that you need into the world of property. And if you've already started, if you've already got some experience, then this can help you accelerate your progress even further. The experiences that people have had at Protege and the success that they've achieved afterwards has been life-changing for many people. So go there right now if you're serious about property and if you want to build a highly successful property business. That's propertyprotege.com. So there you go. That's 2 links to some fantastic resources that are going to help you. And listen, talking about help, can you help me to help other people? You see, the more that we can share this podcast, then more people can learn from the fantastic guests that I've been so lucky to talk to. How can you help? Well, it's very simple and very quick. Just a short review on iTunes is going to help make that happen. If you go to thisweekinproperty.com/iTunes, that will guide you to the very place that you will be able to help other people. So thank you. Thanks for doing that, and thanks for listening into the show. And I look forward to bringing another great guest to you in the next show.